Cats do it for their captain, storming home in Joel Selwood's record-breaking appearance. The Giants get their groove back, and Jordan Dawson, the new recruit, proves the showdown match winner for the Crows. Hello and welcome to The Round So Far, brought to you by AAMI. I'm Riley Beveridge. This is Kane Corns. And Kane, it's been a dramatic weekend. We'll start at the MCG, where Geelong found themselves 37 points down late in the third quarter. What a big straight.
Yeah, what a big story it is. Like, an amazing game at the MCG. What a round of football it has been. There's Tom Hawkins with the sealer in the game. As you said, they came from 37 points down late in that third quarter, in fact, at the 32-minute mark, to kick the last 8 straight of the game in Joel Selwood's record-breaking captaincy game. Great scenes, heartbreak for Collingwood. What a missed opportunity for the Pies, because if you start the season 3-0, you're a 90% chance to play finals. That's what history would tell you. You basically don't miss. Now, there's a lot of positive for Collingwood tonight, but to cough up scores like that and to allow the momentum to swing as significantly as it did, they'll need to review this one pretty hard.
This was the story in the last quarter. 7-2-44 to 1 behind in favour of Geelong. It was all their way after Collingwood had their opportunities to go further in front.
They just refused to give in, Geelong, and that's what you've loved about them for so long. Their leaders stood up. We'll get to that in a moment. But look at those stats. As one-sided as you're going to see in a quarter of footy. They were smashed in contested footy for the first 3 quarters. In fact, they didn't win that stat for any of the first 3 quarters. Dominated in the last quarter, and that was the difference. And I thought how potent their forward line was. Like, the marks inside 50, they took 20-7. 10 marks inside 50 between Cameron and Hawkins, who are magnificent. And I know you want to get to Jeremy Cameron.
He is our Saturday star. 6 goals for the game. We said they kicked 8 straight. He kicked 4 of them. 3 in the last quarter, 1 to finish the third. He was the man for the Cats.
Yeah, doesn't he just look like he's moving more freely? And that was all the talk you heard throughout the pre-season, was how good a pre-season he had been after the hammy stuff last year, and he wasn't quite right. Yes, he got injured in round 1 and missed round 2, but to see him back in, what I notice is the space he's creating for himself, how quickly he gets off his opponent. This one here, like he's always in space, gives himself, and his timing and his judgment of ball in flight is as good as I've seen from him. And because of that quick step, you'll see that there. Like, there's not a Collingwood opponent anywhere near him. And that goes back to the work you do in December and January and February. And clearly he had a massive one. And what a weapon he is, and Tom Hawkins is, as the best and most potent forward duo in the game.
Quite a good 1-2 punch. We mentioned Joel Selwood off the top. His 227th game as captain, breaking the all-time AFL VFL record. But he was getting stuck into by a 9th gamer and a 19-year-old in Jack Ginnivan.
Bit of his own medicine there. He's done the old Selwood shrug, his Ginnivan with the new haircut. Joel didn't like it, clearly. And this was a big moment in the game, the chase down from Ollie Henry. I'm not sure what Joel was thinking. It wasn't his greatest night. Maybe the occasion overawed him a little bit. So Henry goes back and kicks that. You can see Ginnivan there getting into Joel Selwood, and Atkins gives the double free kick away against, and Ginnivan goes back and kicks it. But we do know who had the last laugh.
Yeah, I'm okay with this from Jack Ginnivan. I quite like it. Hayden Ballantyne built a career out of it, and clearly that was a pivotal moment where the Pies.
What about this straight? What about that? Would you advise him to get the dive out of his game?
It's cynical, but it's helping his team. I think his job is to get under the skin of the opposition, and when they kick 2 straight on the back of him getting into Tom Atkins and Joel Selwood, I find that roused Collingwood at the time. They all got around him. This is an 8th gamer that's really giving his side energy, giving them life in a pivotal point in the game.
I think it's a lot to ask for a youngster, because you've got so much going on. You want to establish yourself at the level. To go after a player as well respected as Joel Selwood and to lose in your 8th or 9th game, and look, he only had 6 touches tonight, so clearly he didn't impact the game. I just think it's a lot to ask. I'd rather see him establish himself first and then bring that extra element into your game.
It wasn't the only controversial moment on the night. I want to bring your attention to this. This was Scott Pendlebury talking about an incident involving Patrick Dangerfield with the umpire.
Is there a fine for staging? I'll let upstairs worry about that on Monday, mate. It's round 1 metre, Pat.
Is there a fine for staging? This is the incident he was talking about just moments before, where he got a 50-metre penalty and he nailed this goal. It was the first time Geelong had led in the first half. Do you reckon he has anything to worry about there, Patrick Dangerfield?
No, there's no stage. Yeah, there's clear contact from Maynard. There's an arm grab. Yes, Patrick Dangerfield exaggerated contact, but we've already seen that with a couple already this year that have, because there's been contact, they've allowed that to play on. He goes back and kicks it. And Pendlebury was quite respectful, so I thought the interaction between Pendlebury and the umpire was fine. But I think Scott had a couple of his own players that exaggerated contact tonight as well, so it did work both ways.
We'll head to the Gabba, where we had our first 100-point victory of the season. Brisbane beating North Melbourne by 100 points. This one, the pattern of this game was set in the first 4.5 minutes. Brisbane 4 goals in 4.5 minutes. and they just went away from there.
Yeah, it was a smashing, and really concerned for North Melbourne when you see performances like this. Like, this shouldn't happen. I know there's a pretty big gulf in the experience and where these two teams are at, but to have the shots that they did, 41-13, all of the numbers so lopsided in favour of the Lions, and at times when you're doing this, and I think it was 23 marks inside 50-3, it was the ease in which the Lions did it tonight, which would be really concerning for David Noble. There's McCarthy, he had 4 first half goals, he kicked 5 for the game. And the really concerning thing for North is their next 4 is Sydney, Western Bulldogs, Geelong and then Carlton. So the prospect of being 1 and 6 with a couple of really difficult opponents in the next month.
It is worrying. You said it could have been worse. Charlie Cameron kicked 2-6. I want to bring your attention to this. Start of the second quarter, Lachie Neale tweaks his ankle from the first bounce of this term. Tristan Xerri runs over. Now, you can get a fine for unreasonable or unnecessary contact with an injured player, and that's what he does. Probably
a fine, yeah. No one likes seeing that. I mean, Lachie Neale's not bothering anyone. He's trying to get himself up and get off and get some medical attention on that ankle. He doesn't need a big 110-kilogram ruckman coming across and knocking him over once again. There he is getting the treatment and getting the ankle re-strapped. So, first offence, if it is for Cherry, which I'm assuming it is, a $1,500 fine, and that's what he deserves.
An incredible game on Friday night at the Adelaide Oval. The Crows getting over the line against their arch rivals, the Power, courtesy of Jordan Dawson, the new recruit after the siren.
Yeah, just adds to the showdown rivalry. It is the best rivalry in the game. There's Sam Mays. I'm not sure what he was thinking. It wasn't a high free kick, which the umpire paid, but it was just a sloppy holding the man free kick, if you like. Now, there's Dawson. We highlighted the 2 players, Rochelle and Dawson, closest to the ball. Murphy couldn't take his kick, and I'm sure Lachie Murphy would have missed. They gave it to the best kick in the team. It was an ugly one off the boot. Got the Franklin swing, and there's the scenes after the game. As good as you will see in front of 40,000 at the Adelaide Oval. It is now 25-26 through 51 showdowns, and this rivalry continues to build on what it's done for the best part of 20 years. And the scenes in the coach's box from Matthew Nix, he should be rightly ecstatic.
He was halfway there with Josh Rochelle. He wanted to kick Josh Rochelle. He wanted to take it. He had the ball in his hands. He was going back.
Which is amazing, isn't it, for what is he, a third game player?
Yeah, it's pretty incredible.
Yeah, the confidence to do that. But, yeah, look, Port Adelaide had the game in control, 13 points up at three-quarter time. Adelaide had 8 entries in the last quarter, and they kicked 5 goals, 1. Like, that's as efficient as you're going to get. They couldn't miss Riley. Port Adelaide, well, they kicked 14 goals, 13, and that was the difference. But have a look at the scores against Port Adelaide from set shots to start this year. 29-8 from set shots.
And 22-3 in the last 2 games. It's pretty incredible. Why is this happening? Is it the way the ball's moving through the middle of the ground? Is it the way it's being set up behind the ball? How's it happening?
Well, I'm not sure. I don't think they've been necessarily lay down Mazes straight in front. Adelaide kicked some really difficult ones last night. Just from memory, Schomburg kicked some hard ones, and Himmelberg and Dawson the same from difficult angles. But competition average is 57%. Port Adelaide have conceded, as you said, 29-8 in the last 3 weeks. So, look, it's not an excuse, but we're pointing out that if it was competition average, Port Adelaide, they may be sitting 2-1 rather than 0-3, and they're a big story.
We put the heat on Adelaide last week for dropping Riley Thilthorpe. I think Elliot Himmelberg and Lockie Gallant answered 8 goals. This is Port Adelaide coach Ken Hinkley speaking now. They're 0-3 for the first time since 2011.
Well, the message to the fans is always the same. We keep going back to work and getting ourselves better, and we understand that expectation upon us is what it is, and we embrace that and accept that, and we have as much expectation and issues as anyone has, and including the fans, which we're all on the same page. I don't think we're on separate pages when it comes to how we all feel.
Ken Hinkley there saying they're aligned in their terms of their expectations. What is realistic for them now? Because they're 0-3, they've got an unbeaten Melbourne and then an unbeaten Carlton after that.
Well, that was always the hard part for me, was the expectation is to play off in a grand final and to go one better, and that's what the fans expected. Now, that's near on impossible. 2 teams get to that point at the end of the year, so it was always unfair on Ken. Any talk that you're going to move on from him this year is, I think, ridiculous. You're going to back in a guy who is a strong leader, who's going to work really hard to get himself out of this. He's contracted until the end of next year. So you're not going to move on him this year. So, as I said last week, you need strong leadership around him. They turned their game around in a number of facets. Last night, I thought their tackling and their pressure and how direct they were with the football was much better than the previous week. But in the end, they haven't got the results go their way. They'll butter up again on Thursday night, but you've just got to support him because you're not going to sack the coach after 5 rounds. Any talk of that's ridiculous.
We'll go to the AAMI clangers now. We'll stay at the Adelaide Oval for this one because I'm not sure if you noticed this, Kane, when Jordan Dawson put this through. The man in the front row here lost his phone.
He lost his phone. Nothing worse than when you lose his phone. He's trying to do the right thing. He's trying to post it on TikTok, and his mate next door to him's knocked it out of his hands. we've had to go to the follow-up angle. I was like, did he get his phone back? And he did.
He popped onto the ground and got his phone back. Braden Cook kicks his first game for the Crows last night. Not sure if any of his teammates realised it because no one got around him, but he's lucky that Ned McHenry was there because he pointed it out. Hey, everyone, first goal.
Number one.
First goal.
Number one, get around him. Get around him. He missed out on that. And Tim Taranto, he went initially with the check side and missed. Had to come back around because the mark wasn't set, and he went again, and it was just as bad. In fact, it was worse.
It was pretty bad. Out in the full.
Had a good game, though.
He was very good. Yeah. He was awesome. Kane, AAMI Clangers is back for good for another year. AAMI donating $10 for every clanger registered throughout the 2020 season to help support local clubs. For your club to enter, head to afl.com.au/clangers for good. We'll get to the Giants now. They've got a great record against the Suns at Giants Stadium. Average margin of 82 points over the last 4 games, but this was just too easy.
Yeah, well, it was, and it's a bit alarming. I'm not sure what we learnt out of this game, if anything, about either team, but look how easy this is. This is early on in the last quarter. Yes, the result is not in question, but this is just 10 handballs in a row. We counted them. 10 handballs in a row and no body contact, no pressure, no frontal pressure, no press, no want, no desire to turn the footy over. Bang. That's demoralising for Stewie Dew. Now, isn't it such... Well, it's deja vu, really. They start well, Gold Coast, they beat West Coast, competitive against Melbourne, and then completely capitulate. So I don't know what we've learned out of either team from that performance today.
Had to be better today. We've talked about taggers a lot over the first fortnight of the season. The Giants employed the double tag on Touk Miller, held to 17 disposals and only 2 clearances, his lowest since round 16, 2020.
The double tag gets me really excited. So I love a tag. I love a double tag better. So they've gone, well, he's the best runner and most powerful aerobic athlete in the game. So I don't reckon De Boer can go with him. So let's go with Ash and De Boer. How tough is that for Miller? Once he runs one opponent into the ground, he gets another fresh opponent on him. And if it wasn't those two, it was the other Giants midfielders around them. So that was the issue for the Giants today. Anderson 18, Rao 18, Swallow 18, whereas Taranto, we mentioned plenty of it. Canelio's back to some of his best footy, plenty of it. You see Green there. He had plenty of the footy as well. So plus 95 in disposals, the Giants were against Gold Coast today. It was a smashing around the football.
The Giants had 8 of the top 11 ball winners on the ground. The Suns, there's an issue for them in quarter 1. They've only won 6 of their last 25 first quarters. They've been behind at quarter time every game so far this year. This is their slow rise. It's been this way for 5 years now.
Well, and it's just too hard to address at quarter time every week. So it must be so fatiguing for Stuart Dew to try and address that every week. That's an issue. I'm not sure the game style that they've identified. There's not really an identifiable game style when you go and see them play. They're certainly lacking a key forward with King going down, so relying on Casbolt as the only target down there. Lukosius hasn't been able to impact. And the other worrying thing today was just 4,000 people at Giants Stadium today, so a pitiful crowd watching that game today.
You mentioned key forwards for the Suns. Well, there's one at Melbourne coming through. Sam Wiedemann kicked 4 goals at the MCG, a career high. It was in the absence of Ben Brown, who was laid out due to COVID protocols. Now, the interesting part of this is that Ben Brown got COVID on Thursday morning, so he'll be out of the protocols Thursday morning next week. They play Thursday night on the road against Port Adelaide. So you wouldn't think he plays, you'd think Wiedemann gets another crack.
Yeah, it's a good problem to have. That was what I really admired about Melbourne in the off-season. Like, they didn't just sit on the hands and say, we'll rely on, natural progression from the list we've got. Dunstan was there, they signed up Wiedemann. They could have easily traded him and thought he's probably not in our best 22 at the moment. But they kept him in there. What that does, it puts pressure on spots. And if McDonald or Brown are out of form, they've got Wiedemann coming. So look, I think they can only play 2 of the 3, but it's a great problem to have, and you're right. I think Wiedemann goes again and they rest Brown to make sure he's completely 100% recovered the following week.
Essendon 0-3 for the first time since 1967. Do they still have finals on their radar? They got smashed on turnover on Friday night, minus 76.
Yeah, they've got a lot of worries in their game, and that's the biggest one. So minus 45 differentials in turnover, all 3 games, that's been the issue for them. So 68 in round 1, 55 and 76, as you mentioned. They rank 18th scores against from turnovers, which is the biggest score source in the game. If you're not good in that area at either causing turnovers and scoring or getting scored against, you're going nowhere. So the other issue for me is just how overpowered their midfield got.
Yeah.
So when Merritt was out, of course, but you got Parrish and Caldwell and Shield, they're smaller midfielders, and when they're up against Petrarca and Viney and Oliver, they got eaten alive.
Ben Hobbs, their first-round pick, had 24 touches in the VFL today. Wouldn't be surprised if we see him very soon. We'll head to the Marvel Stadium on Thursday night. The Swans have been the freest scoring team in the AFL this year. They were held to just 1 goal to half-time, and it's been a pattern because the Dogs have managed to hold the Swans for the best part of a decade.
You'd be happy with that, wouldn't you? We've gone back a while there. Average points in these two games is 72 against the Western Bulldogs of Swans, and as you said, 9 points to half-time. Their lowest half-time score since 2015, as you mentioned. I did think Luke Beveridge and the Bulldogs came with an intent to shut down the corridor at all costs, and Sydney are a beautiful team to watch when they're whipping the ball off half-back and taking it through the corridor and getting it in quickly to their dangerous forwards and mids, but they weren't allowed to do that, and it was a really impressive performance, and a performance that they needed under significant pressure, the Western Bulldogs.
Well, one man who was certainly very impressive is Jamara Ugle-Hagan. He didn't get the reward on the scoreboard, just the one goal, but this is what you love to see, Kane.
I loved it. I didn't know he had this in him. Riley, I just hadn't seen this at all. So there's one effort and a big collision. There's the second effort. So watch the repeated efforts here, and I've hardly seen him lay a tackle. I know he hasn't played much footy, second year, so you cut him some grace. But look at this, the speed when he goes, and then bang again. So a couple of tackles there. That one on Mills was a big one at a pivotal moment, and this was almost the deciding factor in the game. Game on the line. There's one, there's two, and a big fair tackle. So the rest will come for him. I've been big on the fact you've just got to play him, and I've seen enough now that the penny's starting to drop, and they're going to have a serious player.
The Dogs off the mark for season 2022. Head to the rest of the round. It's a big day of footy on Sunday. Carlton take on the Hawks. Adam Sarder laid out there due to the AFL's health and safety protocols. St Kilda meeting Richmond. Both teams got a win last week. And then the Derby on Sunday evening.
Yeah, two ripping games. Two ripping Victorian games to start there with a lot on the line for both clubs, particularly that Carlton-Hawthorn game. We mentioned go 3-0, 90% to play finals. Well, one of those teams is going to be 3-0 unless there's a draw, so cannot wait for that. Can't wait to do this all again with you next week.
Can't wait for that as well. Can't wait for AFL Exchange on Monday night, afl.com.au. See you same time, same place next Saturday night.